Today on the Whatsoever Things show, well, it's me. The guys wanted to interview me. So you get to hear my story, how my wife and I got together, and my journey from youth pastor to staff geek. And normally right here I say, it's another great show, so here we go. But since this one's all about me, that just sounds arrogant. So here we go. Well, hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Whatsoever Things show, a podcast designed to stimulate your mind, tickle your funny bone, and encourage your faith.
Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things.
Welcome to another episode of the Whatsoever Things podcast. To my left, I have Sir Thomas Hickman.
Hello!
To the right, Josh Hamlin.
I always forget you're going to do that.
And to my right, Josh Hamlin.
Yep.
He's such a loser.
Uh-huh.
And in the south end zone, Pastor Daniel.
South end zone.
Roll, Tide, roll.
So today's guest is none other than Pastor Daniel.
Hey.
The man.
The myth. Nah, I wouldn't really say he's a legend.
Well,
He's in my own mind.
Yeah,
In his own
maybe.
mind.
The few comments we've had on our podcast, one was, I want to hear from Pastor Daniel.
I wasn't sure he even existed till now.
You've never seen me in the same room as Batman, right?
That's true.
We haven't.
So let me go over a brief background of what I found in my investigation on Pastor Daniel.
You talking about my LinkedIn that I haven't
So-
updated
Wait, you
in
gotta...
years?
Oh, go ahead.
Mike's
Yeah.
working as a private eye
Yes.
part-time.
Oh, he is,
Yes.
man. He will.
Oh.
He will do some research on you.
What'd you find about me?
Okay,
Just kidding.
Daniel. Well, this is from our website, the Oxford Assembly of God. He has always been a geek,
Yeah,
Well,
I get that.
excelling at all things digital. His first role here was youth pastor, and that has youth pastor plus AV and support services and IT, and now he's fully online pastor. I have the I can either justify or I was part of the team to hire Pastor
Oh,
Daniel. on
man.
this
So this is your fault. I wouldn't have
Yes.
admitted that.
Yes.
Does that keep you up at night or you
No,
sleep
not
well?
anymore.
No,
Not
okay.
anymore. No,
All right.
no.
He
he
paid
does a
himself
great
off.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty thankful it went down.
job.
I remember when, I think what was the deciding factor, Mike? Because I think I know.
I don't.
What do you think you know,
I don't
Josh?
Recall.
So back in those days.
You talking about last year? Or
No.
you talking about 10 years ago?
No. Yeah.
How long has it been, Pastor Daniel?
10 years, June. 10
Daniel showed up here with his pregnant wife, Amanda. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And he sat in Sunday school at our Sunday school class. And Mike Rumer was the teacher back then. And he would try to get somebody to say something, make it a discussion. And Daniel spoke up and said something in Sunday school. And Mike's like, I'm hiring that guy.
That's funny.
Would he read a verse and then go, what do you guys think about
Yeah, that's
that?
exactly what Mike did. So don't give me a hard time.
He did a great interview, and it was exactly what we needed. And so proud to say
Good cover.
I'm one of the ones that hired him. That's how I'm going to say. Proud to say. We stole him. He was the youth pastor at the Rock Church in Valdosta, Georgia. Before that, he was the youth volunteer and technology director at the Faith Lighthouse Church.
Mm-hmm.
And
Plant City.
where
What year was that?
I made up that title, by the way.
What year was that?
2006
So,
through 8.
Technology director?
all
Well,
things
hold on,
related
you
to
were the
audio, video,
volunteer there?
lighting were his
Yeah,
responsibility.
you can make up any title. When
I
you're a
was a volunteer.
volunteer, you can make up any
Hold
title
on.
you want.
Technology director in 2002, you said?
2006.
Okay. So
Yeah,
technology
it was
was like
beyond DOS, so it was
figuring out the copy machine for
Yeah.
everybody?
Was it a Sabre copy
No,
machine?
so-
or
he
I
did.
don't think they ever had a copy machine.
Dunder Mifflin and Sabre?
Pastor Daniel, do you own a red stapler?
Do I own a red stapler?
Yes.
No, I don't think I do.
Okay, that's an office. Okay.
It's been a while.
Now,
Could you please speak into the mic a little better? Thank you.
How about this? Is that better?
Yeah.
he before that though, he worked at Friedman Jewelers, and
So do you know about like diamonds and stuff?
You mean cut, color, clarity, and carat?
Whoa.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
know? Okay, stay away from my wife's wedding ring. Just tell her it's beautiful and it looks high quality.
That's a
Jewish
fine
accordion.
wedding ring. That's all I know. That's a beautiful rock.
Yep, exactly. She loves it. That's all we need to know.
and so and I mentioned this to Daniel today that that I threw that out there just to give you guys some meat to chew on. And
There's nothing wrong with a cubic zirconium, by the way.
Well, the funny thing is, I worked at a jewelry store. I managed a jewelry store. Got great discounts. Wife doesn't like jewelry.
Isn't that fantastic? My wife doesn't either. Like
Well,
whenever
it's fantastic, except when you get good discounts on it, you kind of wish you did.
no. Because whenever we were dating and we were talking about getting engaged and married, she was like, listen, do not spend. If you're going to spend a lot of money, buy me a cheap ring and a 4-wheeler. Yep. I was like, oh, I'm definitely marrying you. For sure I'm marrying you.
Amanda was the same way, not so much the 4-wheeler part, but she's unimpressed by expensive jewelry.
She wanted a ring and a PlayStation.
She doesn't like video games, mostly because she knows that I will play them and not give anybody else any attention in my house, so she doesn't allow me to play video games. That's pretty much the way it goes.
Getting a whole new insight on you. I like it.
Yes, but I'd always, I guess I'm jumping ahead, but I'd always, when I was praying for a wife, because you're supposed to do that, right?
Yes.
And
we can talk. We can go down this road.
I was specific. I knew exactly what I wanted in a wife, and I wanted a strong-willed woman, a woman who, if I told her to do something, she'd say, "Do it yourself," and that's pretty much what I got.
Man, that sounds terrible.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
What you got, Josh? I can see it.
I heard a story one time of a youth leader dating someone in the youth group. Are you okay with that sort of thing?
Not anymore.
Someone who's like 24, 25, dating a 17-year-old.
I don't know what you're talking about.
17-year-old little girl.
So go ahead and mark it down where you want to edit that.
So I'm guessing you want that story?
Yes.
So let me read.
He's got to explain himself. We can't just leave it there.
So he has one recommendation on LinkedIn from somebody. I don't know if it was
Patrick.
And it said, Daniel was a true pleasure and asset to manage. A day did not go by when he did not challenge me to the fullest of my ability. I mean this in a good way. It is easy to always see things the way one chooses. However, it is definitely a true gift when someone pushes you outside of your own box in order to view a situation from another perspective. That is what Daniel does. He makes you think. I am confident in knowing Daniel would be a true asset to any organization.
Wow. Did you write that, Daniel?
I wrote it down and submitted it on his behalf. Now, that was Patrick. He was my boss at the time when I worked for Alltel Wireless, when I sold cell phones.
Did you not like him?
Jewelry. No, Patrick was awesome, but
was he an Auburn fan?
No.
Is that the problem?
This was in Lakeland. They don't even know what Auburn is in Lakeland, Florida. No, Patrick was a Democrat and I was a Republican, so that's pretty much where the challenging came from. We had lots of heated conversations about things. But he was a great guy to work for. He was very open-minded about things. I liked to think at the time I was open-minded, so we had some great discussions. He was a great boss. He pushed me to be better at my job, so I wrote him a good recommendation too on LinkedIn. So we exchanged them.
Mm-hmm. And Pastor Daniel, you got your education through the Berean study? Okay.
Berean, back before online college was a thing, you had to mail it in. So I got my correspondence degree. It's not a degree. I got my correspondence education through Berean University. It's a license to preach. Mm-hmm. But I did that in Ormond Beach, in Daytona Beach area. I went to Bible school there. They used Berean as the schoolwork. So
were you and Russ in Ormond at the same time?
No.
Okay.
He's a little older.
I'm from Ormond Beach.
I
grew up there, but I think I had moved away to the...
This was the year 2000.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
I was in Tallahassee.
Yeah. They used Berean as the
also
schoolwork.
known as God's country. National Championship, 1993, 1999, 2013.
Are we really going to name national championship years?
Yeah, I don't think we should do that.
Not with Daniel in the room.
Not with an Alabama fan here.
We got 2 stolen from us in a wide right.
I think we had 2 given to us. So,
well, I think to make up for it, y'all stole some crab legs. So,
wow, we're going down that road, aren't we? No, so the Bible school I went to, they used Berean as their schoolwork, but we did Berean in the morning as a group. There was a group of us there that went through. It was about a dozen of us, I guess, I think. And so we did Berean in the morning, our schoolwork, our Bible training. But then in the afternoon, we were free. I had a job in the afternoon. That's when I worked at Chick-fil-A.
The Lord's chicken.
Yes, the Lord's chicken. It was awesome. It was a lot of grease, but And then the evenings we did ministry. So in the mornings we did book work, in the evenings we did practical ministry training. And they put us in it was a big church, so they put us in every ministry you could think of, just kind of exposing us to various things throughout the church. Okay. And then we had certain ministries that we had to be involved with, and some that we could choose. So that's what I did for a couple of years.
Well, that's good. That's interesting because that builds upon the Berean, and then you got the actual application.
It was the Master's Commission model. They don't really do many of those anymore, but it was the Master's Commission model without the name.
Were you raised in church, or were you just?
Yes, I was raised in church. I don't have.
What, you were raised in church in Pensacola, Florida,
yes.
Correct? Okay, not Lower Alabama, but
Pensacola is only about 5 minutes from Alabama, right?
Okay.
So yes.
You know the town of Midway was where the state capitol was going to be located, midway between Jacksonville and Pensacola.
Oh, something like that.
It was.
That was awesome. So I grew up in church, and mostly, got to get in the mic. I grew up in church, but my parents drugged me to church often, and but they got divorced when I was 4. And so I lived with my mom for a couple of years, and then I moved to live with my dad for a couple of years, and I visited between them. But they both stayed involved somewhat in church over the years, kind of hit and miss for a while. But I stayed involved, and then when I got old enough to be in the youth, I got involved in the youth program. I was a good kid growing up. I wasn't the kid that always did.
Would your parents say the same?
I think so. Because
you're tooting your own horn over here. I don't like it.
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Because I don't. The testimony that I have to share is not one where I was delivered from drugs, that I was into all these things that a lot of people have to share. My testimony is God delivered me from mediocrity, I guess. I just kind of existed. I wasn't a bad kid. I was a good kid, but I didn't do good because I was serious about my faith at the time. I did good because I was too scared to be bad.
Wow.
That's pretty much the case. I've always been a rule follower. I never did bad things because I knew that there was consequences behind it, so I just didn't do them. And that's pretty much it. I kind of existed along until I was working. I was actually working for our church. I had already graduated high school. I chose not to go to college for some stupid reason. And I'm going to find myself,
Yeah.
So I was working. Our pastor needed somebody to work in the office, so I worked in our church office as doing the books, the printing and computer stuff.
Fixing the coffee machine.
Yeah, fixing the coffee machine. It stayed fixed. So it was summertime. I had kind of been feeling like
he's the Eli of the.
Pretty much
of the 1990s.
That's pretty much the case. He's my little mini me. But it was the middle of the summer, and I had kind of been feeling, I had been around church all my life. I was working for a church. My faith was really beginning to grow. I was around pastors all the time. I was really beginning to feel like God wanted me to do something in ministry, but I wasn't sure what it was. All I knew is I didn't like kids. I'm talking about little kids.
Oh, okay.
Little kids. So it was the middle of the summer, and the district, this is in the West Florida district, the district called our church office and said, it's kids camp, it's the week of kids camp, and we need counselors. We're really short of counselors, and we need one. And my pastor didn't ask me. He just said, okay, I got you. I'm sending somebody right now. And then came in the office and said, okay, pack your stuff. You're going down to kids camp. I'm like, I don't do kids, right, Pastor? He said, I didn't ask. I said, I'm going to pay you for the week. You're on the job, so go to kids camp. Okay, so I went to kids camp. And it was at kids camp. I had really been, like I said, I felt like I was called to the ministry somehow, but I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. But I felt drawn towards youth ministry. I liked working with teenagers. I was just barely not a teenager at the time, and I liked working with teenagers. I liked being around them. So I kind of felt maybe youth ministry was a thing, but I wasn't sure what to do or if that was for real. And while at kids camp, I confirmed that I was not called to kids ministry while I was at kids camp.
See, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
It was awful. It wasn't awful, but I don't do kids. But one of the other counselors there came up. He said, "Listen, God told me to tell you that He's already told you what you need to be doing. So go do it." And that was pretty much it. It wasn't a super spiritual moment. It wasn't even during church. It was after church, long after church. He just said, God told you what to do, so go do it. So, okay. So I started looking into options of where do I go to pursue this. And that's when it ended up in Ormond.
What denomination was that church that you worked in? And when I called you Eli, I meant Samuel, because he called for Eli. I'm not quick like that, but you're the Samuel of the 1990s.
Thanks.
Living at the church.
Pretty much all the time.
What was it? Assembly of God? Mm-hmm. Was it okay?
I grew up in Assembly of God. My parents, my grandmother was an Assembly of God pastor. She was very old school, the skirts and bobby pins, and very Pentecostal. Pentecostal, like when you think of Pentecostal,
like the bun.
Yeah, but not just in style. Like she was fire and brimstone, Holy Ghost filled. She had the gift of tongues. So when God gave a message in tongues, she was usually the one that gave it. Except she would wait to the quietest, most somber of moments that you could possibly think of, and went off like an explosion, and scared me to death every time. I usually knew it was coming. I was a kid, so I grew up around this. And I knew it was coming. It was one of those moments. It was one of those moments in church where you knew that God was about to speak. And I was waiting. I was cringing because she was standing beside me, and I knew that she was going to give it. And it still scared me to death. She was in somewhere in South America doing a missions trip years ago, and she, like I said, she had the gift of tongues. So she did what she normally does and gave the message in tongues. But in that neighborhood that they were in South America, it was known for drive-by shootings. So when she started giving a message in tongues, and everybody dove under the pews, scared everybody to death.
They just being machine gunned right there.
Yes. So when I say I have a lot of Pentecostal heritage, and I really all I knew was Assembly of God churches. I studied some things afterwards, but I grew up in Assembly of God. I've pretty much always been Assembly of God.
And so you grew up in Assembly of God church, mm-hmm. Then you went to work for the church, mm-hmm. And was that what was the size of the church? It was in did you go to the Brownsville revival at all?
It was our home church. Was it Brownsville? There are other churches in Pensacola for those listening. But
fact check that.
Jamie, pull that up.
So our home church. Amanda and I both attended that church, and it was running about 300 or so at the time.
And you found the Bible school in Ormond at
he was the pastor of that church. He was he was kind of well known in that district as a camp speaker. They had gotten him Jim Raley, excellent camp speaker. So he's the pastor of that church. So he had put out some information, and I picked it up and followed up.
So where did Amanda come in the story? This is what everyone wants to know.
So
give the people what they want, Pastor Daniel.
After I graduated Bible school, I went to work for what was my other home church. I had two home churches because my dad and my mom were divorced, so I went to two churches. So it was my mom's church. And
did everybody else there call it your mom's church?
Yeah, because they all knew me.
Name? Oh, okay.
They
were like, this is Daniel's mom's church.
Well, it kind of it's when the Bible says that a prophet is not respected in his hometown. Mm-hmm. It's not that I wasn't respected, but it was really hard for them to see me as anything but the little kid running around making trouble. So, but I felt like God called me there. I called the pastor. I said, hey, listen, y'all need a youth pastor. I feel like God's calling me to be a youth pastor. What do you think? And so I went and talked to him and interviewed, and I was there for 3 years. Ended up being youth pastor there for 3 years. I felt like God, after 3 years, I felt like God was moving me on. I wasn't sure what that meant, but God was moving me on. So for a little while, I just got a job selling jewelry, and was kind of waiting on the Lord. What are we doing? I went back to my other home church, the other one that I grew up in, where Amanda was going. She was, at that time, she was about 17. I was 24. But God had already called her to ministry separate than me. He'd already called her to ministry. She was already planning to go to Southeastern. That was already her plan. Her youth pastor kind of set us up.
Okay.
So he's the one that called her parents and says, "Listen, I got a guy that I think would be great for your daughter, but he's a little older." But I knew her parents because we actually played church softball together years ago. So they knew who I was. They were actually comfortable with it. I had her youth pastor's permission. I had her parents' permission. I didn't have her permission at first, but
that's kind of an important one, Daniel.
It was. Our first date was a pity date. She really didn't want to go out with me, but she didn't have it in her to say no. But I guess I won her over with my lack of ability to date.
Lack of ability to date.
I'm not exactly Mr. Smooth.
What happened?
Okay, hold on. This is what's going to happen.
It's not that anything went badly.
This Friday night, you and I are going to go on a date. You're going to show me how you date. I need to know what's going on here.
I'm not sure what to say to that.
You must have done something.
I didn't do anything wrong. I just wasn't smooth at all. I was Mr. Nervous. I was Mr. Clumsy. I know that may be surprising to some, but I'm a geek.
Did you do like the yawn and stretching your arms out? Then
no, I wasn't brave enough for any of that.
He pulled up, some people call me the space cowboy.
He turned that up on his radio, on his mom's car. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I don't know. I just wasn't any good at dating. I hadn't done it at all. So she was technically my first girlfriend. First girl I'd really dated. I did go on one date in high school, but it was just once, and that didn't really count. So she was really technically the first girl I ever dated. But once I relaxed and she accepted date number 2, I'm not sure why, but then I relaxed and quit trying so hard.
She probably had such a good time laughing with her girlfriends afterwards. They were like,
you
have to do this again.
Tell us everything.
I completely understand, because the first date I took my wife on, my wife, she told me there will not be a second date.
She told you that? No way.
It was just, so I understand where you're
Whoa.
going.
I told my wife there will not be a second date.
What is wrong with you guys?
Wow.
What about you, Josh?
No.
I think she pursued him. That's the story I heard, but that's a story for another podcast.
Isn't she older than you by a few months?
A year.
About a year.
Okay.
Our first date, we told her mom we were going to go to the movies. I'm like, nah, we're going to blow that. Let's go do something else. And Misty is such a rule follower. She probably didn't want to go on a second date with me.
So, Pastor Daniel, this is about you.
Sorry.
This is your life.
Well, I don't know why she agreed to go out on another date with me. I told her I would wait if she was uncomfortable. How about next week? So she's like, what, you waited a week? Yeah, how about that? So we went out again, and that time I was a little more comfortable. I wasn't trying so hard. And that time we actually clicked that time. So not too long later, we were engaged. I proposed during Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, as most people know. But it was close enough to Pensacola that everything was closed, everything was out. So we were walking around a park in Pensacola, and I proposed during Katrina.
So when we have Amanda Hahn on, we're going to ask her the same questions and see if she comes up with the same story.
Yes.
We'll see.
We'll have to remember this episode number.
Yeah, we'll see.
So then you followed her to Lakeland when she went to...
In my defense, I went to Lakeland first. She told me, she says, I've already made plans. So I'm going to Southeastern. Whatever you're doing, I don't know, but I'm going to Southeastern. So I knew I need to either propose or give it up. Mm-hmm. So I proposed, and so this was in 2006. I proposed in 2005, but that was, when did Katrina hit? Late summer 2005. So we set a date for July of 2006, and so I knew that we were going to be moving to Lakeland. So I moved to Lakeland a couple of months early and got an apartment. Started working. I got a job at Friedman's Jewelers, which you mentioned, and got an apartment set up. Started, I don't know, getting pans and pots and
you
towels.
Were nesting.
Yeah, I was nesting because I'd never, I never had a place. So I was nesting. Exactly. I got a place set up. So the weekend I got married, I drove back to Actually, I flew back to Pensacola because we were going to be driving her car back to Lakeland for after our honeymoon. So flew back to Pensacola. We got married, and that was it.
And you had already had your license.
Yes. Yeah.
By this time.
I had my license by the time. Yeah.
Just interested, based off of being a part of her education and what you learned in the Berean, and also hands-on at that. Mm-hmm. But how does that kind of?
Well, so what I did was, she went to college. She went to Southeastern University. I didn't go to college. But what I got was a little more practical, but I grew up in the church. She didn't. She was a bus kid. Even though they didn't have a bus, she was a bus kid. That's how she got to church. Her parents didn't really go to church very much. They were Creasters. Christmas and Easters.
Oh.
But she lived, our home church was up the hill from her house. It was a quarter mile from her house. So that's, how we got connected. But she went to Southeastern, but since she didn't grow up in church, she didn't know the Bible yet. She knew what her youth pastor had taught her, but that was very, just, a couple of years worth. So you have an entrance exam and an exit exam. They're pretty much the same, so they can see what you learn over the years. And she didn't know anything, and she was really upset because she thought it was important. She didn't realize it was just a measure. So she was really upset. I didn't know any of these things. But after her college education, she knew everything, the things on that test. And so when I went to Bible college or Bible school, what I learned was it filled in a lot of the gaps, because I grew up in the church. I went to Sunday school. I went to Royal Rangers. I went to all the stuff. I knew the Bible really well by the time I went to Bible school. But I didn't know the really deep stuff. I learned the really deep stuff, the deep theology. I filled in a lot of the blanks of things that I thought I knew but didn't know well. So I knew, I guess, surface level stuff really good. But Bible school actually taught me the depths of some of the theology and things like that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, but did you also, as part of her education, did you go to services there? And
so you're talking about when she was in college?
Yes.
So we started looking for a church. Of course, we started at Victory. That's the big church in Lakeland. And but I actually had an old friend, a friend of my parents, called me out of the blue not too long after we got married, a couple of weeks, I think, and said, "Hey, I heard you got married. Congratulations. Thanks. I have a church in Plant City, which is 20 minutes from Lakeland. I'd like for you to come visit." So we went and visited, and that ended up for 3 years while she was in college. That was our home church. We served the youth pastor there because she was studying youth ministry. I had already been a youth pastor, but we were waiting while she was going to school. So we just served in youth ministry there. That youth pastor ended up moving, and we temporarily ran the youth ministry for a couple of months, and then they hired another youth pastor, and we served under them for a couple of years. So that was when you talked about at the Faith Lighthouse Church. I was the youth volunteer, but I was also the technology. I was the geek. Again, I made up that title because I was a volunteer, and you can do that when you're a volunteer.
Yeah, so that's the best thing about volunteering. You can't get fired.
Right. Yeah. So I made stuff up. But I was one of the geekiest people there. I was an untrained geek, but I was a geek. So I poked all the buttons. I helped with the sound system and the video system and all that stuff too.
And so your it's an interesting background of growing up in the church, working in the church, and how you took your Bible school. Your technology side, did you get that from working for the cell phone company and working for some ancient store?
Ancient store?
Radio Shack? Was that like? What's that guy? What's the artist that draws the old American history? Orwin.
Rockefeller.
Rockefeller.
Not Rockefeller.
No.
Rockwell.
Norman Rockwell.
That's it.
Is that store like in a Norman Rockwell?
It feels like it is. I worked when I was the first.
Some transistors.
The first church I was a youth pastor at, Midway. That was a small church. They couldn't afford a youth pastor, so I worked at Radio Shack. While I was there. Well, I worked at Radio Shack half the time I was there. The other half the time I worked for the United States Navy. So I actually had a national security clearance for a while.
Doing what?
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
No, come on.
If you think you can kill me, let's go.
So I'm just gonna leave that there and not answer it.
Come on, dude, you're gonna kill me. I'm gonna kill myself.
Awesome.
You really want to know? It's not impressive.
It's gotta be.
I'm gonna make you wait.
Well,
we'll talk about it after the show.
So you worked in cell phone and you Radio Shack, or were you always kind of?
Well,
I mean, you say you've always been a geek, but here, you can play musical instruments. I've seen you play basketball. You're more athletic and you're more talented than you say you are, and so.
I don't know how to respond to that.
So when you got here, you were Youth Pastor Daniel, and
with a long goatee. Right?
Yeah, that's
really
really
long. Longer at the time.
It was longer.
Yeah, that was like King Tut goatee.
Yes.
But you were Youth Pastor Daniel, and we were friends. We're still friends, but we became friends pretty quick because I think you're not a typical youth pastor. Would you agree to that, or?
I don't wear a lot of skinny jeans.
Yeah. So explain how you differ from.
Youth pastors have a look. In fact, modern pastors in general, which youth pastors fall into that, have a look. I can be in a parking lot at Walmart and see one of them walking across the parking lot and go, that guy's a pastor.
They got a white V-neck. They got a white V-neck, tight breeches.
There's actually a guy that has a YouTube page that calls out pastors that wear expensive shoes.
Yes, preacher sneakers.
Yes, preacher sneakers.
Yeah,
yes, he'll point out those $350 sneakers. Yes.
Well, first, I don't have that kind of salary, so
you got
that's the big difference. I think.
The old Converse there.
The old Chuck Taylors.
Yeah, I got the Chucks. That's about it. So I don't know the difference between me and most youth pastors. I don't know. I don't fall into that mold. I guess I was never the alpha guy. A lot of youth pastors are the alpha guy in the room. I was never the alpha guy. I was always.
I wouldn't say that. Have you ever seen The Middle, the TV show The Middle? Dude, you got to watch it. But
it's pretty good.
There's this character on there, youth pastor. What's his name?
I don't know. Aaron watches it a lot, and I'll catch some episodes.
People listening to this podcast are yelling at this
probably
right now. Youth pastor,
all three of our audience,
and they're like, he just understands teens, and dude's got a guitar everywhere he goes.
Right,
and it's like, another person who had a hard time being a teenager. Jesus Christ. They start playing a song and you're like, oh my, that's such a typical youth pastor thing.
Yeah, that was never me. I was never the guy that walked in the room and owned the room. Most pastors, most youth pastors are, especially the younger guys. I was never, when you're growing up in like whatever class you gave speeches in, did y'all ever do that? Did y'all have classes where you gave speeches?
I mean,
when I was in like elementary, middle school, you had to give presentations. Yeah.
For work, I had to join. We had a Toastmasters club at work where you give speeches.
Oh, yeah.
It's a club where it's a group where you give professional speeches and you have a job and everyone speaks in a meeting. You either have somebody that gives a speech, you have someone that grades it, someone that counts the ums.
Oh wow!
Or the silent pauses.
Ums is huge.
Everyone has
job
a role,
interviews.
so
Barack Obama wouldn't have done good on that one.
I'm getting anxiety just thinking about that because on speech day in school, I tried to be sick. I hated being in front of people. I was never that guy. Hated giving speeches. Didn't want anybody to look at me. Didn't want anybody to acknowledge that I was in the room. I wanted to disappear. And speech day, you had to get out in front of people. It was horrible. Well, see, and God called me to preach.
The first thing you got to do every time is you got to be self-deprecating. As soon as you walk up there, guys, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. Just work with me.
I do that often.
And as soon as you do that, they're like, all right, this guy.
Yeah, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody
my
likes
kind of idiot right
and
there.
And then when you screw up, you
so
go,
basically
again,
set the bar low.
Yes.
So if you happen to go above the bar, you're like a winner.
I thought you did fine doing speaking. I never.
My speech that I gave at Toastmasters, I did. The title was "Everything I Would Tell You If I Wanted to, if I could give a speech in public." And so I talked about all these things that I would tell instead of having to tell them and elaborate on. I just told them all these things that I would tell them if I could give a speech in public, and I ended up giving a speech.
That's funny.
Oh,
I don't remember where I was.
I don't either.
You had a speech club. You hated being up there in front of.
Well, I wasn't a club. It was just class.
Class, yes.
But strangely enough, God called me to be a
Do you still get
preacher.
Nervous talking in front of people?
Yeah.
You're over it now.
No.
Yeah.
But not, you don't get nervous talking in front of the
he
youth.
probably.
I'm nervous right now.
Why?
It's just I'm sitting in front of a mic and people are going to listen.
Listen, take a sip of your Dr. Pepper Icy. You'll be all right.
Wait, this is the guy that wins the men's talent show every year.
Yeah, I know.
By singing a song I found on YouTube.
Hey, that's the trick, man.
But you stand up in front of everybody.
You don't have to really be funny. You just have to be good at stealing somebody else's comedy.
I'm good at stealing other people's content. I'm good at that.
Don't make me enter this and beat you.
I think you'd be fantastic at the men's talent show.
Me and Mike should have won that first one. Remember that one?
Yes.
We should have.
Did you hear what I did that the last time I was in the talent show, like umpteen dozen years ago?
No.
I blew a balloon up with my nose.
I remember you did Virgil one time. Remember that? You said, "Great day." And then
I?
Yeah, he started talking like Virgil. Pretty funny.
I don't know.
I'd like to see a video of that.
I did a bunch of... Me and Misty did that clown skit. That was hilarious. She said she has it on video somewhere. I'd like to see that because that was hilarious. I was like the baby clown and she was trying to change my diaper and it was just...
You sure that wasn't a dream or something you had?
I don't think so.
That sounds weird, dude. I don't know.
I don't know. Ask your wife about it.
Floridian slip. So,
well, my first sermon when I told my youth pastor at the time, I say my youth pastor, I was graduated, but I told the guy I was working with, the youth pastor there, I said, I feel like God's called me to youth ministry. I need to learn to preach. And he said, okay, you're preaching next week. Oh, okay. So my first sermon was I planned for a good 25, 30-minute sermon, and it went off in about 5.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's
it was
funny.
It was really short.
That's fine.
If you go real fast, you're like, and then there was Daniel in the lion's den, and then
there's a lot of that. So speaking's never been my forte. So.
Sometimes the shorter the better. If you haven't struck oil in 20 minutes, quit drilling.
Pastor Strickland says no sermon's bad if it's short enough.
That's true.
So I subscribe to
beat
that.
the Baptist to the restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember what I've learned from you is how to worship. Which is crazy, but I learned that from Daniel.
Yeah, but you told me you don't like it when people tell you to worship.
Well, you didn't tell me. I think I was helping in youth, and we had to worship. You're like, we're going to worship for an hour. Isn't that what you said? Something like that. And I'm like, Daniel, this is a bad idea, dude. So just growing up in church, to me, this is me, worship was the worst part of, like, you'd stand there and people would sing.
Yeah.
And I remember people saying, when you get to heaven, you'll just be worshiping God for eternity.
That sounds
and
terrible.
I'm like, I know hell sounds bad, but that does not sound good either.
There will be
there
will be thousands of angels and
standing in a pew singing for eternity.
Yeah.
That'll drown you out.
But that's not what worship is. And Daniel showed me it's like giving your attention to God in everything you do and in your thoughts and in everything, and you don't have to sing to worship God. Can you elaborate on that? Or
worship is a lifestyle. It's not just something you do right now and stop doing later. Worship, making God number one in your life is the first thing you have to do to worship, and He needs to be number one in every part of it, not just at church, not just when you're in front of people. He has to be first in every part of your life. That's number one. And then after that, giving Him glory for whatever it is that you're doing, using your gift. Everybody's gifted differently. For some people it's singing, but for some people it is most definitely not singing.
Yes.
And you know who you are.
Right here. Right here.
So whatever your gifting is, worship in it. But it can also be doing something you're uncomfortable with. Sometimes singing together, corporate worship, because the Bible does talk about corporate worship.
Right.
Our personal expression.
And I wasn't trying to dog corporate worship. I'm just saying.
But our personal expression of worship is different from corporate worship. Corporate worship is what we do together because the Bible talks about how we should do that. But our expression of worship needs to be putting God number one and honoring Him in everything that we do. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, and so like you were saying, it's something you can do your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
You worshiping God isn't something you do for 5 minutes, or 10
done.
minutes in service, and you're done. It is part of your life. And I'm like, whoa! It was a light bulb moment. I never forgot.
I think just the first thing is just make Him number one in your job, and making Him number one when you're parenting, when you're laying in bed at night and you're just pillow talking with your wife. Whatever it is that you're doing, He needs to be number one, and that comes in many ways. It's the same as, the Bible says pray continually. A lot of people are like, how can you pray continually? I can't pray when I'm sleeping, right?
Like, and bless the dog.
Right.
And bless the cat.
You run out of things to pray for. The Bible uses a lot of, I don't know, I hate to say exaggerations because somebody's going to throw something at me, but the Bible uses a lot of things that are exaggerated to prove a point. And when it says pray continually, it means constantly be in fellowship with God, constantly be in communication with God. He wants to be your friend. He wants a relationship with you. So to pray continually means to communicate with Him all the time. Hang out with God. Talk to Him. Let Him talk to you all the time.
A good example of this is Pastor Daryl. If you see him here at work, walking the hallways, he's singing.
Yeah,
all the time.
Stop.
All the time.
And it's usually the same song.
That man is in worship. His life.
Or whistling. Have you ever heard him whistle?
Yeah.
He's an expert whistler.
He's a pretty good whistler. He could get better.
Is he a good teacher? Because I can't whistle.
Kidding.
I want to learn to whistle.
You can't whistle?
I
whistle better blowing in.
You just put your lips together.
I can't do it.
I did learn how to whistle with my fingers in class in elementary school.
Oh, I can't do that.
Josiah's not allowed to whistle in the house anymore.
Is he allowed?
Yeah,
you showed him, didn't you?
No, he's drove his mom crazy.
That's funny.
You're gonna whistle, go outside.
So while we have the opportunity, let's talk about the digital side, the online campus side of what we have to offer people at Oxford Assembly of God. I'm sure most people do not even have any idea all the different platforms and places they could find.
Before that, though, you did get fired as a youth pastor here. Is that why you changed to another? just to clear the record, because that's what I heard.
That's not what I heard.
I'll hand you a pocket
I take
knife.
great pride in hiring and firing. No,
He fired
The same
Daniel
guy.
as youth pastor.
And then hired his wife. By the way, we did, when we introduced that to the youth. We did the whole.
Did you really?
Yeah, I said,
funny.
guys, this is going to be.
The Lord's telling me to move on.
Yeah, the Lord's telling us to move on. I took Amanda. I
nice.
took her
Just
hand.
After somebody else did that recently, you had to follow that.
Yeah. So I was like, we're not gonna. I'm not gonna be the youth pastor anymore. And in fact, the church has already hired a new youth pastor, and we're going to introduce him to you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Your new youth pastor. My wife. So, but I let it hang there for a minute, and there was some people that were pretty excited about it, and some people that were upset about it, and I'm not sure which ones were which, but so that's what it went down. So to answer your question, so I've always been a geek, but I grew up in the woods. Not a lot of geekery in the woods.
I want to know more about this in the woods, because you're not an in the woods kind of dude.
Yeah.
And then every time I show you a picture of something that I'm doing out in the woods, you're like, that brings me back to my childhood. And I'm like, bro, no, we're.
So I grew up in several areas, but the place I guess I spent most of the time, my early teen years through, was in the woods in Seminole, Alabama, where there's a blinking caution light, and that's about it. Oh, there's a hunting club.
Pretty bustling town.
Yeah. They still have the gas station with the pump that has rotary numbers on it. Mm-hmm. That's still there.
Can you say what's the name of that town?
Seminole.
I think it was a sign, Daniel, that you missed.
That was not a sign. So Seminole, Alabama, which was between Pensacola and Robertsdale. Pensacola, Florida, Robertsdale, Alabama. If you go west out of Pensacola about 15 minutes till everything disappears and it's nothing but woods, that's where I grew up. Now it's grown up a lot since then. There's a lot more there. There's a lot of neighborhoods and things like that. But that's where I spent my time. Now the church I went to was 15, 20 minutes into Pensacola from where I grew up. In Seminole, but the school I went to, because I lived in Alabama, I had to go to school in Alabama, which was 45, 50 minutes the other direction. So I graduated from Robertsdale High School, which, by the way, is the same, nobody knows and nobody cares, but it's the same high school that Tim Cook graduated from, the current CEO of Apple. Anyway, nobody
What
cares.
is it? Apple?
Apple. Small company. They might be going somewhere.
Is that some fruit company?
Lieutenant Dan said we don't need to worry about money no more.
I thought, well, that's good. Well, what's the thing?
Wow, I walked into that one, I think. So, but anyway,
did you cut the grass for free at the ball field, though?
Well, we had a lot of property where I grew up, so I did cut the grass. Yeah. I love riding lawnmowers, by the way. They're awesome.
And since you were a gazillionaire, you cut that grass for free?
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it went.
Slap that knee, Josh. Slap that knee.
It was a 50-foot trailer that I grew up in, but yeah. So, I was in the woods. There's not a lot of geekery going on out there, so you were talking about basketball. I spent my afternoons after school playing sports with my cousins. My dad married into a large family, so I had lots of cousins. We were all playing something. I wasn't supposed to be inside while the sun was out, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And
drink from the garden hose.
Yeah, drink from the garden hose, that kind of thing. So we played one of the big three: basketball, football, or baseball, all the time, nonstop. And I had a couple of uncles who were pretty good at them. One of them that should have been a coach. And he taught us a lot about it, so that's what we did all the time. So I didn't do a lot of geekery. I had some video games, but that's it. Nothing. It was the original Nintendo. I had the original Nintendo and the original Sega Genesis, Sonic the Hedgehog.
But here at church, you were kind of pushing for, we needed to have this kind of online campus. We needed this years ago. And now we're like playing the catch-up game, feels like, but at least we're doing something.
Well, you created the portal, the Next Step portal, which was a kind of a...
Well, how I got there is I took a computer class in high school, fell in love with technology and computers. I discovered computers, I guess you could say. And so I've always, since high school, I love technology, so I've been poking around with it. And every church I've been in since then, my primary role was always the youth pastor. But because of my interest in technology, I always found myself inserting myself in places where I probably didn't belong. But I always ended up doing stuff with technology, and I did that here. Pastor did tell me, the one thing besides youth ministry he told me he needed me to do was to update the website. It hadn't been updated. Somebody else had been doing it. I don't know who. He says, we need a new website. I had done that at my last church. Said, okay, no problem. I didn't do too much with it at the time, but I had our website. And I started helping with, the sound system, and I started seeing, well, we need some signs put out. So I made some signs, and we need a video for this. So I would make the video. We needed somebody to edit pastor's videos when he preached. Pastor Chuck was doing it at the time, but he didn't like doing it. So I said, hey, let me do it. I'll do it. Just little by little, I started doing more and more tech stuff, and I enjoyed it. So I didn't I didn't begrudge it. I enjoyed it because I like doing
And then
all
we
this stuff.
moved into the new building, and we had to get all new technology that would work.
And I no offense to the board, but I don't think they really thought through at the time who's going to run all this stuff. We didn't even have a computer for the sound booth. You know, it's like, what are you going to use to put on the screens? Oh, we didn't think about that. So, in their defense, they had lots of other things to think about. But
should have had tech guy on the board.
Well, they did pretty good, but there was still some things, and it's like, okay, we got this stuff now. What are we going to do with it? Fortunately, Rich stepped up to the plate. We had some good people that stepped up to the plate, but I was just kind of the fill-in, I guess, the catch-all. I did whatever needed to be done, and like I said, I always enjoyed it, and I found myself doing as much of that as I was youth ministry. Fortunately, Amanda's always been in youth ministry. She was 100% in it, just like I was, even though for a while she had a job outside the church. She was still 100% in the youth ministry. She was called to youth ministry before we got married. So she was doing a lot of it. I was still doing some youth ministry. About 2 years ago, I sat down with Pastor and I told him, I said, Pastor, God's moving me somehow. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not looking for jobs because I don't have any idea what the Lord's doing, but God's moving me somehow and I don't know what. I'm just telling you.
A new season.
Yes. And he said, all right, well, let me know when God tells you. So I just kind of left it there for a while, and I just kind of went on because I felt like God was changing things. I was, as much as I loved teenagers, I was just to be honest, I was enjoying that less and less. I was enjoying the other stuff that I was doing more, and it was starting to get more of my attention anyway. And then COVID happened. Somebody needed to do the live stream. We'd never done a live stream. We had cameras, but they weren't really meant for what we're doing. We weren't set up for that at all. But then we didn't have a choice. We had no other option but to live stream our services. And so I started poking around, and I got with Charlie because Charlie's like the smartest person I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, he's an electrical engineer.
Man, he's everything engineer.
Yeah.
So, he and I kind of fiddled around and started figuring it out. And so all the ministries shut down pretty much for a couple of months. So that was all I had to do, really. We were still doing youth ministry kind of online, but it was very limited. And Amanda was doing as much of that or more than I was. So I was primarily, every Sunday and Wednesday while everybody was at home because they couldn't come to church, I was here. I was doing the live stream and all those things. And I realized how much I loved doing what I was doing. I started feeling, God's put me together as my love for technology. The things that I had been doing for the church up to this time were just kind of leading to this point, and I didn't know it. I saw a need, so I did it. But more and more, I was realizing God had already been laying the groundwork using me, and among other people to kind of to make that happen. So Amanda and I were talking about it. Her dream was to be fully employed by a church, preferably our church, in youth ministry. But the church had hired me, not her. So we were just she had quit her secular job, so we were just going on one income at the time, and so she and I started talking about how are we going to handle this. I can't do when we started talking about meeting back in person. I couldn't do youth ministry and all the stuff I'd been doing. Something had to give. Mm-hmm. I had already kind of passed the point of no return. So it was sort of, and I never put it to pastor and the board like this because I don't make demands, but it was sort of if you want me to continue focusing on youth ministry, all the stuff that we've been doing has got to go. I can't do it all. I never said that to him, but that's just what we're thinking in the back of my head.
You didn't slam your fist down on the table?
No. Pastor Strickland does not respond well to threats. So I never put it like that, but that was just, I didn't know what to do. I was just kind of caught. So we Amanda and I decided to talk to him. We said, hey, let's try something different this summer. Amanda's going to, with his permission, of course, we're going to let Amanda take the lead in the youth ministry and let me continue doing what I've been doing with all the live streaming, the technology, building our online campus and our online presence. So let's just try it through the summer. We're not asking for a salary change. We're not asking for anybody to make anything official. Mm-hmm. Just behind the scenes, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and by this time, Amanda was ordained, right? She was.
Yes, she got ordained last year. So she got ordained during the quarantine. Yeah. Her and Pastor Scott. So she was now, and Pastor said, "Okay, we'll do that." So she was now leading it unofficially. So through the summer, she was leading it. I was just following her lead, I was just kind of one of the helpers. And then at the end of the summer, what was it, October, we were already talking about budgets for the next year, and we were trying to figure out, okay, now what? We had agreed through the end of the summer, and okay, now what? So we talked to Pastor and said we'd like to make this. We'd like to make this permanent. I think it's good for the church. Pastor seemed to like it. So he talked to the board. I don't know what those conversations look like behind the scenes.
Let's come back before we finish out with that. So what else did you build? Like you had to build a team of online hosts that had to be trained, because we could get somebody that emails or calls in and says, hey, I'm contemplating suicide, or I'm thinking about this. And there's got to be parameters.
So the hosting is one small part of our online campus that we're building out. The hosts are people who are literally monitoring our live stream. We encourage people to chat. I know that some people are like, I can't talk during service. But we encourage people to chat because A, we don't know that you're there if you don't say something. But B, they don't have, people watching online don't have the advantage of a lobby, a church lobby to interact, to talk to one another, to fellowship. That's a very churchy word we use for building relationships. They don't have that. So that's how we do it online. We encourage them to talk, to chat. And when they're there, we don't want to just regurgitate what we do in person online and say, okay, here you go, good luck. We wanted to actually minister to these people. We wanted to be there to minister their needs, to pray with them. And the Church Online platform, we go to Facebook and YouTube too, but specifically the Church Online platform, they have built a built-in prayer functionality. You can click the button and go into a private prayer chat with one of our hosts, and they can pray with you right then and there live.
They text you the prayer?
It's online. It's on our website. It's not a text. It's a chat room. It's on the computer. You can do it on your phone too, but it doesn't text your phone. It's just all within the platform. And so I had to build a team of people that could pray with people, because especially, honestly, the biggest thing I needed was a female, because if a female come in and needed prayer about things that females need to talk about, I needed a female to pray with them. So, and since nobody at the time was doing anything else, because we were in quarantine, I had a significant team. I've won by one, lost pretty much everybody on that team, not because they quit, but because the other ministries, they were all involved in something else. So our other ministries have restarted. So they've kind of found their way back to those. So I'm recruiting again. If you're listening, I could use your help.
And by being a host, that means you can. Obviously, you could set up a computer somewhere, but you could be at home.
Yeah, you can be anywhere.
Yes,
it's all online, and they can literally pray with people. We've prayed with a lot of different people from different places. Facebook and YouTube doesn't have that functionality, but I'm there watching that stream, and if somebody has any prayer requests, I'll literally type out a prayer to them right then and there if they're comfortable with it, and I'll pray for them right there. And just saying you're going to pray for somebody helps, but actually typing in a prayer actually really means something to people, especially if I'm actually praying that prayer. And we have a form for people that want more privacy. They can go and fill out a private form, so it's not public on Facebook, but they can do that on Facebook and YouTube. So, but that's just one small part of our online campus. What we're trying to build out. So my personal struggle with all of this was, how do I be the church geek, the technology guy, and still be a pastor? How do you merge those two things, to be the guy that's doing all the tech stuff, but also pastor people? Because I still felt called to pastor people, not just to do behind the scenes tech stuff. I still felt called to pastor people. Well, the being able to have our online campus gave me that. I could do both. I could do all the technology, the geek stuff, and still pastor people. So people that watch online, I keep up with them. I send them messages during the week. If they had prayer requests, I follow up with them, ask them how things are going. Sometimes I'll send my voice. I'll send a voice prayer to them. I'm pastoring these people, and a lot of the people were our people that couldn't come, and some of them still are. But we're starting to grow an audience of people who like our style of church, which has a very specific style. They like our style, so they attend our service online. And now I'm able to pastor. We've got a lady, Miss. Well, I won't name her name, but she's up in northern Alabama, and I can't remember how she told me she found her church, but she had a hip surgery a couple of weeks ago, and so she and I have been talking and praying. So I'm able to minister to people just like her. Anywhere in the world. we can minister to them. So I can still be a pastor to these people.
And we have somebody in Seattle or somewhere out there that
Some family
wakes
members,
up.
They wake up early
to get to watch service live when they could watch it. What other you can watch a Sunday service if it's not copyrighted because of the music. You can watch it live.
You can watch it live on Facebook and YouTube or the Church Online platform, all of which you can find links to on our website.
You can always replay it on YouTube at any point.
You can replay Facebook and YouTube at any point, again, unless there's copyright issues like the cantata.
And then you can listen to it via the podcast platform on the website.
What I do is I take our Sunday messages and cut just the message part of it, because that's the part that lends itself to a podcast, and that's part of this podcast. If you subscribe to it, you get that. So any Sunday morning messages go into this podcast right here. So our online campus, some of our dreams for the online campus, besides being all the things I just mentioned, we want to be influential on social media. For good or ill, social media is not going anywhere. And if you could go to a place where everybody's already at and build a church, why shouldn't you do that? Mm-hmm. So that's what we're trying to do.
I just think the church is always should always exist in the marketplace of ideas, and right now you're right, that's social media.
For good or ill, that's where it is.
I mean, it's like anything else. It's a tool that can be used for good or for bad. So the more good we can try to put in it.
Let me ask you though, like you were saying, these folks throughout the country who are tuning in or going on the line, is that how they say it?
On the line, on the webs,
on the wide world,
on the interwebs.
What's the reason they would? Because there's mega churches, there's plenty of them, and they do this too. Why would I choose a little church in Oxford over one of these mega churches?
I have a really good answer for that. You're right. Why choose our church over the now thousands of churches who are online? I told Pastor, because I didn't have an answer to that early on. We were streaming, but it's just because we had to. But why would they continue? Why would we continue to stream, and why would people continue to watch us after they can come back to church? My answer to that is most churches, not all of them, I don't want to offend anybody who's listening, but most churches who are going to continue live streaming after the quarantine is finally, whenever that is, when it's finally lifted, most of those churches are very modern, bleeding edge modern churches, and their style is very modern, bleeding edge. If you've watched any of our services, you know that's not our style. We have a kind of a blend of traditional and contemporary, probably leans a little towards the traditional. We have a style, and people can watch any church on the planet, but they can't watch, they can't get what we offer.
It's limited.
It's very limited. Yeah, I don't want to say they can't, but it's very.
I think it also has a personal feel. You know what I'm saying? Like, because Pastor will get up there and he'll kind of converse with some of the people in the crowd, you know what I'm saying? So like when you're in service and then, he's like, what do you think? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like he brings the congregation into it sometimes. And I think that helps, when people are looking for connection. Yeah, everybody's looking for the connection.
That's true.
And so when they see this guy's connecting with his congregation, that help, you know what I mean? That gives them more of a reason to want to tune in.
So I think we have a niche.
Sunday.
Yeah, and I think mega churches they have a good role too, because they're out there. But one of the downsides of it is, I don't know if you feel like cattle. You're moved in and moved out, and it's hard to make connections. And
they tend to be very young person oriented, and that's not bad. That's their audience. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not our audience, and that's probably never going to be our audience. But that's fine. That's our niche.
There's some people that don't want the connection. You know what I'm saying? Where they might be an introvert or whatever. You know what I mean?
There's plenty of young people here, by the way. Just it's not just old folks.
We have some folks that they will, when they're watching online, they will greet me at the very beginning, say, "Hey, how are you?" and we'll talk for a second. But then after that, I don't hear from them anymore the rest of the service, because they've been in church for a long time, and talking in church is
it's time to listen.
Yeah, it's time to listen, and there's nothing wrong with that. So they don't talk anymore because they're focused, they're listening to what they're doing. So I guess that answers your question. I think we have a niche because we're going to continue the board willing. We're going to continue to live stream.
This podcast doesn't chase them off.
Well, this podcast is another hour plus that Daniel has to be here to set up, listen to us, and then he has to edit it all.
I was hoping to train somebody to do that, but I've had so much fun doing it, I don't want to let it go.
It's funny, though, how we're mixed in with the sermons. It's like you get wisdom and the Holy Spirit.
And then you get us.
And then you get us. Like, we'll poke fun at Daniel.
Make fun of how bad he is at dating.
You broadcast the Sunday morning second service.
The 10 a.m. service.
Wednesday and Sunday night? Or?
So we have Sunday morning, our 10 o'clock service, and of course it's there. Once it's streamed, it's there for you to watch after that. We also, we record Pastor Strickland's Sunday evening broadcast. We record that on Thursdays. We record that straight from his office. I thought it had a great look. It's got a wall of books behind him. I thought it had a great look in there. So I record that and I edit it. And it streams. It's called a simulated live. It's pre-edited, but we post it online. And it streams as if it were live. And people can watch it and we chat with them and various things there. But then it's there in perpetuity after it streams in our Wednesday night Bible study as well. And
you also provide the pastor's daily call. You set that up?
Yep. Pastor's phone call, it's actually been really good for our online campus. To be successful on social media, you need to have content regularly, but you also need to have people interacting with that content. That's what tells the algorithm on Facebook, for good or ill, hey, this content's important enough to show people, let's show it to more people. So I needed stuff to post, and I'm good at the tech stuff, but coming up with things, I'm just one guy. I can't come up with something every single day. I don't have it in me right now. So pastors at the beginning of the quarantine started doing, he'd been wanting to do, I think he wanted to do radio. I think that's what he said. He wanted to do a radio show as if it were a phone call, that he was talking to somebody, just sharing with them a little bit of wisdom.
I thought he wanted to do the Elvis channel. I was like, there's already a satellite channel that has that.
So he saw that as the perfect opportunity. Hey, let's do this video. And we weren't sure what to expect with that, but it became an every weekday thing, and people seem to love it. It's unedited. It's just usually it's Marcia, Miss Marcia. She records it for him. She's his camera person, and she just gets out there. There's no. It's just a phone. There's no equipment.
Yeah,
there's no editing.
I like that the best.
I think that's what people like,
and it's great because he had wild turkees walk by. His household pets usually make an appearance. When he was on the beach,
the wind's blowing. I
can't
hardly hear him, but
it's raw. It's real. It's just Pastor Strickland being Pastor Strickland, sharing a 30 to 60 second little tidbit, and people are blessed by it. So
it's good.
It's
consistent.
Really good.
You can log on and hear a consistent. It's the message.
Except
it's the
church.
The
2 or 3 times that I messed that up. Okay. Yes.
Or when we have copyright.
Yeah. Well, one of our dreams.
Rusty and I to record music and record songs and so. Never mind.
Crickets. So one of our dreams. We want to have, I don't know what to call it, but I call it a microsite. We want to have pop-up churches. So not just, we can call it a viewing party. People that are watching us online most of the time are alone or maybe with their family. We'd like to have microsites so that maybe if there's a group of 25 people over in the South Leesburg area that enjoy our content, let's get them all together in one room. We can put it up on a big screen. They can enjoy our service together, and it's like they're another campus. And we can, if it gets organized enough, we can even have a pastor of that campus who looks after those people. He shepherds and pastors those people, looks after them, checks in on them when they're sick, and mentors them and all that stuff. But they're still part of our church because they view our service online on Sundays or Wednesdays or whatever. So they're part of our church. They're part of our family. We're supporting them. They're supporting us. It's a microsite. That's one of our dreams to get to one day. And then let's see what else. Oh, we have our social influencers team. By the way, I'm just putting plugs
social
in now.
Influencers team.
Yes.
So I have a MySpace page. Is that good?
Yeah. Hey, I'm with you, man. I've got these things. Have you heard of it? Floppy disks. Dude, you don't even need a file cabinet anymore. You can store everything you want on them, and you can just put them in your bag and walk around.
That's crazy talk.
I'm investing a a lot of money in the floppy disk business. Floppy disks. Have you heard of them?
Yep.
You probably couldn't even put this podcast on one.
Yes.
So to have like Instagram, but in order to have Instagram, you got to have Facebook.
Well, no, you don't have to, but they're owned by the same company, but you can have one or the other. So I'm trying to put together a team. I only have a few people on it, but like I said earlier, to get traction on social media, you need people interacting with it. So I'm trying to put together a team.
Are you calling them influencers, though?
because when we post something that we think's important or whatever, we actually will send them a text, say, hey, we just posted this, go comment, like it, and share it, on whatever platform you're on, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, go interact with it in some way that sends signals to Facebook, hey, this is important stuff. So
they're not doing like makeup tutorials and putting eyelashes on and stuff.
No, that's somebody else.
Is that what the influencers do nowadays?
But the idea is they're influencing the people in their circles. People in my circles are different than their circles. So when they share our content, people in their circles have a better chance of seeing it than they would if somebody like one of you guys shared it. So I'm trying to build a team. Right now it's just a few people, but I'd like to have, a whole bunch of people that whenever we put something out there, I can send them a text. Hey, we just put this thing out there. Go look for it. Go like it, comment and share it. It sends signals to Facebook. Hey, this is important. Show it to people.
That's
and it puts it out further. So I don't want to say it's cheating the system, but that's a little bit what it is.
I don't know. Weren't there people like farming likes from China or something like that? They'd pay some Chinese people.
Yeah, we're not doing that. These are actual people.
I mean,
These
that's
are
not
our
a
people.
bad idea. I'm just saying.
Then you also set up the
portal.
The portal, which is next, it has steps you can go through if you have questions on salvation. You have drilled it down so far all the way to where they can even get and access the Right Now media for free.
So we have we have one website, but there's a special part of our website that I call the portal. It has its own address, even though it forwards to the same page. I gave it its own address. So our main website points to people that are outside of our church that don't already go to our church. They're our audience. They don't know who we are. They don't know what we're about. That's the main part of our website. The Next Steps portal, it's part of that website, but it's kind of a separated area. It's for the people who already go here. If you go here, now what? What do I do now? Where's my class at? How do I get involved? How do I sign up for things? Where do I go? It's a bulletin. It's a sign up sheet. It's interaction. All of those things. We try to kind of have it housed in one place. And one of the tools on there, I did call it My Next Steps, but that was so close to the Next Steps portal, it was confusing. So we renamed it. It's called Growth Track now. And that tool actually can literally walk people. It takes them by the hand and walks them through what it means to be a Christian. What's my next step? Because if you're not growing as a Christian, you're not. You've kind of missed it. You should always be taking a next step. There's always a next step. So it literally walks them through what the next step is. It doesn't have to be in that order. It doesn't even. There's lots of little steps in between that probably need to be done too. So it's a very high level thing. But it's things like, okay, what's it mean to be saved? Okay, now what? What's after I get saved? Well, baptism. Okay, well, this is how to sign up to be baptized. Here's what baptism means, why we do it. The next step after that is I don't know if it's the next step, but one of the next steps is, you should get involved with a small group. Well, here's our small groups and why you should get involved with it. There's our missions stuff is there. That was the place that housed our mission thing. How do I get involved in missions? Why do I give to missions? Why should I give to anything at all? How to give to the church. Like I said, it walks people through what their next step is in their growth and how they can take that step. So it's not meant to be the only thing. It's not meant to replace, preaching and teaching and the gathering of the saints, but it's a tool, especially for those who aren't here. People that are online, how can they take a next step in their faith when they can't come to this campus? Well, we have a lot of online tools to do that.
And then you also have the video room, and you have people and you video, and we need help. We need helpers up there.
Always.
In the back, operating the cameras.
So the video room has two purposes. It has the camera operator that literally operates the cameras for the services. And that's all remote control. They have one chair that they can operate all of our cameras from. But we also have where we record things like our video announcements, other special videos, like we have a bus kids video that we're going to be showing here in a little bit. Any special the Veterans Day videos that we put out, that all gets recorded and up in the video room as well. So we have the cameras and microphones and various things like that up there. So we've acoustically treated the room because when we started recording, it sounded like you were in a barrel. So yeah, that room gets a lot of use these days.
So we have a lot of technology offerings, and it's consistent. How else would you characterize it?
It's growing.
Growing.
We're still trying. We have a big vision for a lot of this, and right now it's mostly just me. I've got a small team of people who do certain things, but if you're listening, I need lots of help, and training is available. You can find out more at oag.church. But we're always growing. We're trying to get more volunteers, because the more people I get involved, the more we can do.
So what do you mean more? What's the next thing?
So one of the things I'd like to do, I want to have a service pre-show. Okay, so when our service starts at 10, but I'd like to go live at, I don't know, quarter till or 20 till or however much we have, where we have a pre-show where I would love to have sort of like this. I'd like to have some people just kind of talking about things, giving an interview. Let's interview somebody. Let's
so like a football game. You got an analyst
right.
up there. It's like, what do you think he's going to talk about today? Well, Jim, if Pastor goes in this direction,
we'll get him a telestrator.
It's more likely that he's going to win.
It's game day for our church.
He's got exactly Elizabeth on the field. Elizabeth, what do you see down there?
I would love to have something like that. That's exactly it. So, but we got to have people to do that, because for the most part, I do have people helping me, but for the most part, all the extra stuff that we're talking about is just me. Right. So I need personalities to be the on-screen personalities. I need directors. I need
church ain't low on personalities.
Right.
Yeah.
And also the youth,
in a good way.
The youth ministry is highly technical. I mean, you do videos, you do online. I mean, I was watching you set up yesterday, and you've got three computers I saw.
Yeah.
Plus the drums.
You don't need all those computers. Or screens, I should say.
No, I wouldn't say screen. I'm talking about computers.
Technically, it's just one computer, but there are multiple iPads involved. We have an iPad that controls our sound system, an iPad that controls the computer that controls the screens. We have an iPad that controls...
He's such a shill for Apple. I'm telling you. He owns stock in Apple, and every time he says...
Did I mention I graduated from the same high school as the CEO of Apple? And we have an iPad that runs our worship tracks, that runs our stems, and we have an iPad that has the lyrics for the band. So there's lots of technology there. Our sound system is all based on an iPad and in-ear monitors and things like that. So there's a lot going on there. I had to get some help with all that. I didn't do it all myself, but I'm the nerd, so I'm the one that makes it happen.
All right, so now you've got to tell us some stories about your time here that are just crack people up. There's...
Well, it reminded me, some people have been coming back to church that that stopped coming here around the time you started. It's made me think about the cycle of the youth, of how, who's been involved, helpers you've had. You've had a cousin of mine that's I don't want to get it wrong, but he's in the Air Force now. He's
flying planes.
Yes. He's not general listed. I want to say he's captain or lieutenant, but you've had a lot of people helping you. You've had people, you've trained people, you've helped people come through here, and just thinking of the personalities and the people. And
we want the juicy stuff too.
I don't know if I have any juicy stuff.
You do. Come on.
I can't think of anything right now. You put me on the spot. It is interesting. We've been here a decade now, so it is interesting to see. A lot of our teenagers, like there's one who was here when we got here, and now she's working in the medical field, and she has a couple of kids, and her sister is now in our youth. And if you're listening, you know who you are. But it's interesting to kind of see the people that we have influenced in some form or fashion over the years. We've been very involved with the schools. My wife's still very involved with the schools. She teaches there sometimes twice a week. And it is definitely interesting. As far as specific stories, if I had thought about it ahead of time, I would probably have one. I can't think of anything right now.
Summer contests, youth camps.
Well, the biggest thing about our summer contest...
Did you fire Josh from being a helper with youth after a summer contest?
Probably should have.
He did.
I think that's a story.
I did.
I taught them kids how to win.
You still owe money.
Oh, yeah, well, that I owe you still good.
So our summer contest,
I'm sure he owes a lot of money.
Our summer contest we do every year during the summer, and it's because generally during the summer kids can go anywhere and everywhere, so we kind of lighten things up a little bit during the summer, and we do this big contest to keep kids involved. And it's a point system. We put them in teams. Sometimes they do individual, but usually it's in teams, and they earn points just for normal church stuff: attendance, offering Bible, bringing a guest,
offering.
The good one. That's the one.
Listen.
And Josh is a Hamblin. Apparently, all Hamblins are cheaters. That's what I've learned through the years.
That's the line too far.
And so Josh was a team leader.
I need to defend my family's honor right here.
Whatever. You're the least of the cheaters.
If you don't make those rules rock solid, there are loopholes everywhere, and that's not cheating, Daniel.
So there was a prize to win. It's not a big valuable prize, but everybody wants to win the prize. So Josh, in our first year to do the summer contest, which was the best year, I think we did the Avengers that year. It was awesome. Josh was in charge of Team Thor, I believe.
Oh yes,
yep. Whoever be worthy, and Josh was exactly that the whole time. He was looking for ways, not necessarily to cheat, but to find the cracks in the surface, to bend every rule, to find the places that we didn't think of to figure out ways to win.
But you know what? I taught those kids how to win.
What he did is sandbag us because they got points for offering, and he had he told the kids we're not going to put any offering in until the last day, and that's how we're going to win. We're going to save it all up to the last day, and a lot of it ended up being IOUs that never got paid.
What's a couple $1,000s? Friends. Listen, but he separated this team up, and
fingers are being pointed.
Half of these challenges were like athletic, and he made me short on the athleticism side of this, and so I had to be creative if I was going to win. Like, my team isn't going to run down the field and pick up the ball before the rest of the guys, so we had to do stuff. I'm like, you got to trip them at the starting line. It's the only chance you have.
And since we didn't make the rule, no tripping,
I taught them that no matter what, you can beat the alpha in the room.
Life lessons.
That's right.
Yeah, Josh cheats at everything.
No,
he's also told me stories about other family gatherings where he's the least of the cheaters.
Yeah.
So there's a game that Josh got us to play as a little family group, whatever, get together.
Is it Capture the Flag?
No, it's One Night Ultimate Werewolf.
Oh, okay.
And so
excellent game, by the way.
He started teaching us how to play with. This game is much funner if you don't cheat.
And then cheated the whole time.
No. He's true. I could say if you cheated, it wouldn't be as fun. But this guy's sitting over here going, I don't cheat. If he starts off telling you how to play a game with, it's
you
funner
keep throwing
if you
this
don't cheat
word around. But if you're playing Monopoly and you're the banker, you don't. You have perks to that. You get to loan yourself money if you need to.
Settle down there, JP Morgan Chase.
And that's why America's in the financial crisis it is.
I had an epic game of Manhunt, Capture the Flag going on at Camp Sozo and a Royal Ranger outing that we had to cut short for two reasons. One of them was Josh.
What did he do?
It was an argument on...
We definitely need to go into
There's other individuals involved.
Other individuals involved, but I understand where you're coming from, Pastor Daniel.
So you've had to deal with it too.
Yes.
Okay, I do get a little competitive. I apologize.
He wasn't allowed to be a team leader after that.
Yeah, we used
Actually,
to get...
I think he did the next year too, but that was it.
We used to get together here on Friday nights and play football, and then I just kept beating Josh over and over and
what
over
are you
again.
Talking
so
about?
Finally, he just said, "We're not going to get together anymore."
That's a lie.
That's exactly what happened. He decided he didn't want to get beat by me anymore, so we stopped doing football on Friday nights.
Yep.
So that little rabbit trail, but that was so the technology in the youth, technology in the church is and just as you get. And we're seeing this with soundboards and lights. As you get the technology programmed and understood, then it becomes obsolete, and you got to replace it
every time.
And then one thing doesn't talk to the other, and then you're back through.
I was hoping to get a new video system this year because the one we have is this one we got when we got the new building, and it wasn't made for what we're doing and can't be really upgraded anymore. So I submitted a proposal when it was budget time. But now our soundboard has died, and it costs more than the new video system that I was hoping for this year. So we're going to have to get a new soundboard probably.
All right,
soon.
I'll pay you my IOU. Will that help you out?
Nope, not even close.
Which IOU? Is that the drink IOU or IOU? Or
is
that
that's right. He has two tabs going.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that drink one's pretty high. Yeah. Every time he walks in there, he grabs a drink, and I'm like, "You're not going to put any money in? I get them later."
I got him on video.
Let's prop you up with the grant or the grant that you obtained for the church.
Oh, okay. So that particular one that you're talking about is from Google. So Google offers nonprofit grants to qualifying nonprofits. So I jumped through all the hoops, which was significant. They don't make it easy, but I jumped through all the hoops to get it. So
and you said you're not athletic.
Yeah, I jumped through those hoops like the best. So we get $10,000 a month in free advertising. So from Google, and not specific advertising. We can't do like video ads. It's just very specific text-based ads. But $10,000 is a lot of ads. And Google, the way Google works, Facebook is more for people who already know who you are or in what you're about generally. But Google is for people who they're not searching for you. They're just searching. They don't know what they're searching for all the time. Usually it's like churches near me or Assembly of God churches, whatever. They're just searching for something, kids activities. So using that grant, we put keywords on Google to help people find us. So, and we have a lot of keywords that we're using now. I had to get some help with that. The board doesn't know that yet, but I had to get some help because staying on top of Google keywords is a full-time job in and of itself. So we got the free ads, but you still have to stay on top of it or the ads go away. So I had to farm that out. But we've already spent this month in the free advertising. You can see how much it would have cost, and we're up just in the last 2 weeks. We've spent about $3,000, $3,000, something like that. And we have two sets of ads. We have keywords for our local stuff. Here's who we are, how to get to us. But we also have, because we're doing online ministry, we have national ads. So people can find us anywhere in the country. And that one spent about $1,000 by itself. So, yeah, Google ads. We're running Facebook ads too. We've got one going right now for Easter that we've had a lot of people interacting with. And our website has a plan your visit button on it. So the idea is people who are planning to come visit our church, they can go ahead and tell us who they are and what their kids' names is and their ages. So they already coming. They know where to go. They know what to expect because the website helps them with that. And we get their information. A lot of that comes from the ads that we're running. So we've gotten a whole bunch of them this week. So excited about Easter.
All right. Well, I think I can't think of a techie way to close this session. You got one, Thomas?
I don't think so.
Okay. Josh?
You got final words, Daniel? Anything
yes, final words.
On your heart?
People wanted to hear you, and they're going to hear you now after this episode, just in the background as usual. Will you have any parting words?
Parting words. What you do online is probably going to be there forever. So remember that when you're online.
That Instagram algorithm. You got to watch that thing.
Even if you think it's private, it's probably not. So that's just a little word of advice. Think of what you're putting online and stop arguing. You can't win an argument online.
Does that include Yelp reviews?
I disagree.
I'm just putting that out there.
Thank
you can't win an argument online. I've never met somebody who became a Christian because they were argued with on Facebook. So stop the arguing. Just love people.
Love. Show grace.
There you go.
All right. That's a good ending. Thank you.
All right, y'all, we just want to thank you for listening to our podcast today. The Whatsoever Things podcast is just a group of folks sitting around talking about their faith, and it does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the leadership of Oxford Assembly of God. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can subscribe in whatever your favorite podcast application is. And if you'd like to find out more information about our church, you can visit our website at www.oxfordag.org. That's oxfordag.org. We'll see you next time.